My stock frame template is now my stock frame presets. I made a template that creates these stock frame transitions, utilizing the template system or at least the timeline system within Davinci Resolve. However, when I finished the project, I was on Davinci Resolve 19, and for some odd reason, Davinci Resolve Project Library does not have backwards compatibility. And so unless you were using Davinci Resolve 19, you couldn't use the template. Now I downgraded and rebuilt the template in 18.6.6, which is the build before 19. However, it still limits how many people can actually use the template. If you had never upgraded to 18.6.6 for whatever reason, you couldn't use the template. So I hit the drawing board and now I've created a stock frame presets, 12 of them to be exact. They're easy drag and drop presets that you can use on your footage. I also created a demo where you can download and utilize 2 of the presets for free. Use code FRAME24 at checkout for 15% off. Once downloaded, extract the files, which includes the PNGs that I use to create the frame effect, and also includes the sound effects. And they're the same sound effects that was in my stock template. You get this DRFX file, just double click it, and you'll be prompted to install. Since I already have it installed on my computer, it says overwrite. So I'm gonna overwrite. So now to find the preset back, go to effects, or hit this little drop down arrow, go to GS effects, and you'll find the stock frame preset. And if you download the demo, you should see the 2 effects here. Each one of the effects have a number beside it. It's just the number of the effect, but also has an additional number here in brackets. That number in brackets indicate how much media you need for that effect. So for this first one here, you need 5 pieces of media. This one here be 2 as well. This is 3, and the bottom one is 6. And when you highlight it, it should give you a preview of what the effect look like. So you'll need a piece of media to fill out each frame. And this first one here is one I'm gonna go over. So I'm gonna just grab some footage from the media pool. Now these are dynamic, but you want to have at least a minimum of 20 frames. So I'm gonna go through here and I'm gonna split these clips. Then I'm gonna get rid of this back footage. I don't need it. Select, now if I hit Control and D, I can see the amount of frames is 75, so it's more than enough. So then I'm going to box select all these. I'm gonna use the keyboard shortcut Shift F, which I think is a default shortcut. I might have said it myself. If not, you can right click, so I'm gonna Control Z. You can box select, right click, then change to new fusion clips. Then go down here and grab stock frame 6, drag it on your fusion clip. And this one here is kind of heavy. And so when I created it, I left the motion blur off. So I'm gonna right click right now and go to render cache effects. I'm gonna click on the effect name, then I'm gonna go to playback, go to render cache, and I'm gonna change it to user. They'll bring up the little red bar, and I'm gonna wait for it to turn blue. Once it's completely rendered, I'm gonna hit P to preview. Now this one I'm using footage. It's a little less taxing if you're using still images. If you right click and then go to open in timeline, I can then go through and box select these. I can hit Shift R. It'll just create still frames. Then I go to this little icon here, is the timeline viewer. Change it to stack, and then I just hit the drop down and go back to timeline, and it had to re-render again, but that's how the effect looks. I'm gonna go over into the inspector tab, going under effects. I'm gonna hit this little drop down here to widen it out. The controls for each frame is underneath each one of the names. So frame 6, which would be the last one. If you want to say, for instance, I want more of the fire, you can go to media controls or media position, and then move it over, and you'll see it'll move the media within the frame. Then to control the frame itself, you go to frame center, X and Y, you can move it around. You can also rotate the frame however you like. These flip controls I didn't include with all the presets. I didn't really find it all that useful, but they're there for at least a couple of them. Then say for instance, if you only want maybe 3 of these frames, the frame on and off, you can just select and it'll cut that frame off. So if I only wanted 3 of them, I can cut those off and have those 3 play. And again, for this one in particular, I left motion blur turned off because it's kind of heavy. So if you can turn it back on and adjust it if you want. And then the drop shadow, which if I move this up, bring another piece of media in, you see it has a little drop shadow under it. You can control that with the drop shadow controls. You can increase the strength or turn it down to 0 to completely remove it. And of course, you can change the angle of which the drop shadow appears. Increase the blur, decrease, you get it. So now if I move that out the way, and say for instance, I want to use this still frame, I can hit Shift R. Then I go to one of my other frame effects, which are single frames, and just drag and drop. And then once again, you still can control the media. So I can move this down to get more of his face. Then I can increase the size of the frame if I want to. In this situation, I did not turn it to a fusion clip. I'm hitting Control Z to go back. And say for instance, if I cut it right here, you'll notice it just pops up because because the effect is still going by the keyframes of the footage. So if I go into, say for instance, go into Fusion, you'll notice it started at frame 115. So it's basically looking for frame 1 or frame 0. So I hit Control Z again, and then right click and turn this to a Fusion clip, then place it on there. The animation plays in, because if I go into Fusion, it's now finding frame 0, so it play the animation out as intended. When using one of the presets that have the multiple frames, you want to make sure your footage lined up. If you have still images, at that point, you can stretch them out to whatever size you want to, and just make sure they all come in at the same time. Once again, I'm gonna split these clips, delete the back ones. I'm gonna box select these and create a fusion clip. And then I'm gonna grab stock frame number 3, which has 5 frames, and you see the little Polaroid images there, and they come in one by one. You go to under the viewer. If you hit this drop down here and change it to Fusion Overlay, you get the on-screen controls. Kind of hard to grab in this particular instance, but if you can get a hold to them, you can move them around. Some of them move the actual frame itself with the footage, and then there are some that actually moves the footage, like this one. Unfortunately, you can't label them. At least I don't know how to label them on the screen where you can tell which is which. But again, you have all the controls in the inspector tab. So if you want to cut the frames off, you can do that. You want one frame to be bigger than the other, like frame 3, a lot larger if you want to. Move around, rotate. These are the same. I actually designed these myself, or kind of create these myself. It's just horizontal flip and a vertical flip. Again, I didn't include these controls on all the effects. After designing them, I didn't really feel that they were actually useful. Again, link is in the description. Use code FRAME24 and get 15% off site-wide.